going. Any second now. All right, there we go. And we'll get this recording. And it's recording. And I got 7:31. So we will call this October 26th council meeting to order at 7:31. And we will start with the prayer and the pledge. So tonight we'll go, Our Father, who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day
Give us this day our daily bread.
Forgive us our trespasses. As we forgive those
who trespass against us.
Lead us not into
Lead us not into temptation. Deliver us from you.
For thine is the kingdom,
And kingdom,
power,
and
and glory, forever. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
the republic
to the republic
For which
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation under God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
justice
and justice for all. All right. And Brian, you're still on here. Roll call, please.
Cosgray. Present. Foreman.
Present.
Hamilton.
Present.
Hankinson. Hankinson. He's on, isn't he?
His phone's still connected. There he is.
There he is. Keller.
Present.
McCreary.
Yes, present.
All right. 6 present. We got a quorum. Let's have a meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the October 12th, 2020 council meeting minutes. And while they're doing that, in this instance, Brandy, since you weren't on the committee at the last one, a proper vote would be to abstain.
I've looked them over. I don't know if everybody else has, but I make a motion we approve them as written.
I second it.
Foreman motion, Keller second to approve as written. Any further discussion on it? I looked them over, didn't see anything either. As usual, Barb does a great job. Hearing no other discussion, roll call.
Cosgray.
Yes.
Foreman.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Hankinson.
Yes.
Keller.
Yes.
And McCreary.
I would like to abstain, please.
All right. 5-0, 1 abstention. Meeting minutes will be approved as written. All right, moving on. Tonight's agenda. There is a small amendment, and by small amendment, I mean 2 very important pieces of legislation that need added on with sponsors. They would be 2020-36, which is a resolution authorizing the village administrator to prepare and submit an application to participate in the OPWC state capital improvement and or local transportation improvement programs, execute the contracts and declaration of an emergency. 2020-36 is for the Brown, Coomer, and Fremont Waterline project. And or resolution, 2020-37, which is the same caption title. I'll read it as part of the ordinances, but this one is for the Park Street paving project. So we need to add those to the agenda, and I will need a sponsor for each of those. They've gone through pretty much every committee, mostly service.
And we did have a motion to enter into these, but this has to be a part of the project. The resolutions passed by council have to be a part of the projects before they're submitted.
Yeah, we had to.
I was going to say, Mayor, I'll sponsor. I guess both of them. There's nobody. That somebody else wants to jump in there.
I'll go ahead and I'll sponsor 37. Cosgray here.
All right. All right, Cosgrave will sponsor 37 because, well, he doesn't live on that street and Chuck does.
Yeah, that's right.
and we'll put Keller down as sponsor for the water line project then. All right. Those were the only amendments I saw on the necessary. So is there a motion to amend the agenda as just mentioned and accept it as amended?
Well, Mayor, also ordinance 34 and 35, we got to have a sponsor on them too, don't we?
Did I miss that, or do those have sponsors?
They
I don't
do
want
not.
it in the agenda.
You are correct there, Chuck. Those need sponsors as well. I thought they had sponsors. I'm sorry. All right, so I need sponsors for 34 and 35 as well. 34 is amending the employee manual. This is the COVID testing one. Because we passed those by motion to send them the last time. It came from rules.
Yeah,
That's what I was going to say. And I'll sponsor. Yeah, and I'll sponsor that one. That's why I said it comes from rules.
Okay, so sponsor on 34 is Keller, and 35 is the schedule of fees to create a fee for demolition permit. That came from rules, and if I recall correctly, Chuck, you also made that motion. All right, so we're going to make you the sponsor on that one too.
Okay.
All right. So now with sponsors added to 2020-34 and 35 and the addition of 2020-36 with a sponsor and 2020-37 with a sponsor. Is there a motion to amend the agenda and accept as amended therein?
Okay, I'll move to amend the agenda, add in the two sponsors for 34 and 35, and also add in 36 and 37 with sponsor to the agenda.
Foreman seconds.
I'll second.
Go
ahead,
All
Rick.
Right. Keller motion, Foreman second. Discussion. Roll call.
Keller,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Cosgrave. Yes.
All right. And Chuck, will you give me a quick motion to accept as amended, just because I don't think we were completely clear on the way we said that?
Okay, I'll make a motion. We accept the agenda as amended.
All right. Second.
Cosgrave second.
Cosgrave second. Discussion. Roll call.
Keller,
Yes.
Cosgrave. Yes. Foreman,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
McCreary.
Yes.
All right. Amended will be accepted as amended. Moving on. Visitors, I don't have any emails at this time relating to public comment, though I have been receiving some emails about the levy. Brian even got one that got passed along to me today. Thanks for that. But nothing for public comment, at least when I checked right before we started the meeting. So moving on, village administration reports. I will first say welcome, Brandy, to council. Like I said, before we came on and started the meeting, a couple that you hadn't met said hi. I know you know several of the members. So as we go along, if you have questions, just pipe up and ask.
Okay. I will. Thank you.
All right. And along those lines, I sent out an email. I know not everybody gets email. Since we're getting towards the end of the year, I didn't want to do a whole bunch of shakeup on committees since they get redone in January. So since Brandy is replacing Dwayne, we're going to leave Brandy on service. Wade's going to chair service for the rest of the year. And that will also put Wade on finance. So Brandy will serve on rules and Wade's spot on on rules. So Brandy will be on service and rules. Wade will chair service for the remainder of the year, which puts him on finance. And that way we're not shifting everybody around for 2 or 3 meetings. And I'm going to try to go quick tonight so that Terry can spend some time going through her report too, since it'll be Brandy's first time getting the VA report. But we did have Arbor Day at the Greiley on October 18th. Terry, I have the proclamation for you that I presented to Steve, and then he gave it back to me to give to you so that it can go in with our Arbor Day application. We planted 2 trees at Greiley House in front of the museum. It'll take a number of years to grow to replace the tree that fell down, 2 years ago now, but it was a good spot. It had a couple Cub Scouts turn out for it. So it was weird doing it in October, but interestingly enough, the weather was exactly the same as when I do them in April. So rainy and overcast. I've got a district advisory health department meeting coming up in November. It's going to be virtual right now. The big thing right now that we're waiting on is Lancaster. They have to have a health department. They don't have their own, so they contract with the county health department. As chair, we went to them and said if everybody that's in the DAC is getting a 5% increase, Lancaster is going to get a 5% increase. So we are waiting on their council to pass that. I've been very, very public in saying that, if they don't want to pass that, then it's still cheaper than Lancaster starting their own health department. So I'm pretty sure they'll pass that. But that's what we're waiting for at the November meeting to approve the contract with Lancaster. For almost everybody was on. We had one of the Terry buildings vandalized. Terry's going to work on getting us some costs to see if we can fix that stained glass. It might not be possible. With regards to the levy, I've had a couple town halls. We got a couple people attending them, which is good. I wish more people would attend them, but I'm getting a couple of people, and it's a chance to sit down and talk. And by and large, everybody that has attended asks good questions. Everybody agrees that it stinks that we're in this position, but when they get the questions, they understand, and at least now are making informed decisions about it. I've got one more town hall tomorrow night and another one on Monday night right before the election. So hopefully we'll get a number of people attending them as well. As I just mentioned, I've been getting some emails, even Brian's getting emails asking questions about it. So if, Terry, Barb, Brian, you guys get emails about it, just forward them to me, and I'm answering them as quick as I can. Along those lines, Terry and we've been talking about CARES funding because we still have some money we need to try to spend and get it spent here quickly. And then Terry and we've also been talking about how to potentially get us, at least some of us, to be able to meet back in person. The school board here kind of uses a hybrid meeting process where some people are in the room together and some people connect in virtually. Terry's going to work on seeing if our council chambers, if we spread out with a couple of us in there, and then is it possible then to set a computer and a microphone somewhere that some of us can remote in on Zoom like this and still be able to hear. That said, if our numbers keep spiking, I don't know that the health department will let us back into a building even with just a few numbers. So that's kind of the stuff we've been working on the last couple of weeks. Anybody got any questions for me? If not, I'll pass it off to Terry. All right, Terry, take it away.
That was my report. So
I would say nice try, because I'm looking at this nice big utility report.
Right. So I'm going to go a little slower on my report tonight, just so Brandy can see, maybe understand a little better what I'm trying to do. I did emailed this to her earlier with an explanation. I hope that helped Brandy a little bit at least. So I'll start with the page 1, which is the water report. I think a couple of things of importance on this graph is, first of all, if you'll notice from August until September over in the right-hand side of the graph, I'm really pleased with that. What I'm seeing, if you remember when we started doing this, that the more the orange was on top of the blue, because the blue is like my raw numbers. So the more I can match the raw and the finish, the less unaccountable water we have. So as you can see, Joey has tweaked this. He has a really stable process going. I think kudos to him. He's made a lot of changes along with Mr. Little. So I think this is very good for us. Just to let you know, Brandy, sometimes, like I tried to explain, unaccountable water can mean anything. It could be evaporation. It could be, for instance, Village Hall uses water. We don't meter it. There's a whole lot of unaccountable water scenarios. And this is one of the projects that we're working with the EPA. The EPA has a whole laundry list of metrics that we have to, they just rolled it out this year that we have to follow. Baltimore was further ahead than everybody else. And I can say that with pride because my husband wasn't, because he's a village administrator. So anyhow, so we've been tracking our metrics. So it's really easy for us to submit these to the EPA. And again, you know, the EPA just started doing this. We've been doing it for a while. And this is probably the best that I've seen the water treatment plant look as far as narrowing those two lines together. So this is a really good look at. In the lower left-hand corner is kind of like what I was talking about. We have 3 scenarios. We have raw water, which comes directly from the well. And then we have treated water, which goes through the wastewater treatment plant. And then we have water that we bill. I mean, in a perfect world, which would be utopia, they would all be one and the same, and they're not. There are many reasons why we could have treated water different from billed water. And as you can see on these data points for September, we're getting closer, a lot closer than we were back in 2019 when we made some changes. The difference between the 5+ million that we bill and the maybe 6 million that we finish is the multiple again of things. It could be water leaks that we don't see because infrastructure is all under the ground. And consequently, you don't know what's going on down there unless there's a backup in a house or say we see water coming to the surface. So sometimes you can have what we call lateral or very, very slow leaks in our system that we wouldn't know, but it would be enough to lose water. And that could be one of the unaccountable or not billed. The other thing is that we have several facilities that we supply water to that aren't metered, such as the Village Hall. So again, the closest we can get those 3 data points, the better. And as you can see, it's been a struggle some months, but we're getting there. It's looking much better. And what the bar graph does over to the right, it just looks at it in a different way because our goal there would be get the little tiny graph on the bottom, the gray, the difference, which right now is there's a difference between the raw and the finish of 340,000 gallons. So we want to try to get that as small as we can too. 0 will never be accomplished. Nowhere in water, wastewater, anything with utilities is 0 going to be an obtainable goal. So we're working very hard on that. Any questions? I know that's a lot. All right, moving on to page 2, wastewater report. Kind of the same thing. This looks a little different because not only do we have a meter at the wastewater, which is a total of everything that goes through the plant. So in other words, all the discharge through the whole village goes through 1 meter at the plant, but the gray and orange lines represent where it enters our collection system at. And as you can see, there are 2 points. There's a southeast lift station and a company lift station, with company being our largest lift station that we have. We just spent quite a bit of money to BSI Engineering to help us upgrade that lift station. It went neglected for many years. There were parts of the system that were not working at all, that were bypassed. So now Mr. Little has been working very hard with BSI to make sure that all of the PLCs, all of the inner workings, all of the automatic pump notifications, everything is up to speed, so we have a better hold on that process. So that kind of explains the three different.
May I ask, I know there are tons of acronyms here, and I'm just listening, taking it. What does PLC stand for, please?
That's a computer program. Like PLC is what the computers work on. I'm sorry. I don't know what the technical term is, but it is.
Well, that
PLC
helps me just to know. Okay.
Runs the computers.
That's a computer program. That helps.
There you go.
Thank you.
It's a programmable logic controller is what it actually stands for. But it's a computer.
Yeah, and we have replaced a lot of those. Trust me, there were a lot of them that weren't functioning, and they were in sad shape, Brandy. So this has been a project that I think since we put on our electrician last year, he is very knowledgeable in this area, and he has just did tremendous improvements for us. So then the bottom graph is another project that we're working on with the EPA. This is the difference. This is the difference between finished water that comes from the wastewater, the water plant, and what we process at the wastewater treatment plant. In theory, those lines should be really close together, with us processing more finished water than we're doing at the wastewater treatment plant based on the fact of evaporation, et cetera. The issue arises when we have a thing called I&I. What that means is years and years ago, there used to be combined sewers. There used to be where both the storm water and the waste from residents all went into our collection system. That is illegal. EPA is a very gung-ho on getting those sort of connections totally removed. The other issue comes that a lot of residents have their sump pumps and their drainage off of their roofs that enter into the collection system, which then makes this gap between the red line and the blue line far apart. What happens if we only have so much that we can process at the wastewater treatment plant? And when all of this rainfall happens and we have big rain events, all of this goes to the plant, and some of it is taken and put into an EQ basin to help the plant get caught up to all of the runoff that's coming. Sometimes it can't keep up, and sometimes we have what we call overflows. And overflows means just exactly that. Some of the waste that's coming in does overflow and go into the creek. Now, that sounds worse than what it is, because we monitor that. Because of our plant and our makeup, our water that we discharge into the plant is probably better than most standardized or most normal wastewater treatment operations. Now we have, and that'll be one of the graphs on the second page, and we'll go there now. Page 2 on the bottom, it shows you in the lower right-hand corner, the overflow events that we've had since last September. So page 3, thank you very much. So on page 3 in the lower right-hand corner, it shows you how many overflow events we've had. Now, you may say 5, and you may say 7, and you may say, wow, that's a lot. Overflow events from the EPA, they consider this. If I start overflowing at 11:30 at night, and at 12:01 the next morning, I'm still overflowing, guess what? That's 2 events. So they don't look at hours, they look at a period of 24 hours. So anytime within that you overflow, that becomes an event. These events are monitored. So every time we overflow, we have to immediately notify the EPA. The EPA then reviews the report we send in, and then we have to submit to them a 5-day follow-up plan. So in that follow-up plan, we have to say what we're doing, how much it was, why it happened, and et cetera. So all of this information the EPA gathers and they monitor. So again, this is another project that we're working on with the EPA. We did a lot of smoke testing this last summer. The staff was able to do it, which saved the village a whole bundle of money. The problem with that now is that we need to go back to those areas where we saw the smoke, which means there's an illegal connection, and notify them. But the worst part is that there are connections that come in through sump pumps that we will never see. So it's really kind of hard to fix a problem that you can't visualize or you can't touch and you can't see. But that is one of the things we're up against. So we have hired an engineering firm to help us with this. They have been in contact with EPA too. So the three of us together, the engineering company, EPA, and the Village of Baltimore are working on this project. So that was a long way to say, when we get rain, we sometimes have issues. And I say sometimes because it depends on the saturation of the ground. So as you can see in the left-hand side of that slide, it shows you what our rainfall was per month. Kind of a misnomer, because for instance, you can have 1.5 inches for the entire month, and it can be spread out over 30 days, and you'll never even realize it when it comes to the wastewater treatment plant. Or the reverse, the worst case scenario, is that we can have 1.5 inches fall within an hour, and then we're going to realize it, because then everything is going to rush out to the plant, and then that could cause an issue. So just because you see a high amount of rainfall doesn't necessarily mean that they were the worst months, but you can equate it to March. Was it good for us? But again, it depends on the saturation of the ground. So the top of that page, number 3, then shows you how the flows at the wastewater plant, how they look if I superimpose the rainfall. You can see what I was just saying about sometimes you can get a lot of rain and you won't see an impact, and sometimes you just get a little bit of rain in a short period of time and you see an impact. And that's kind of representation in this graph. Sometimes you see a high flow and high rainfall. Other times you see a high flow and you say, where's the rain? So it just depends a lot on conditions other than we can control, I guess is what I want to say. Okay, moving on to page 4. This is the utility report. This report is important because this is how we monitor those that are not paying their bills. When I first came, this was very, very high. So I worked with Missy and Brian and Joey, and we all put a program in. We have a shut-off list now that we create a couple of days before the bills are due. And then at that time, if they haven't paid, then we basically shut their water off. So this graph has changed a little bit since COVID. As you can see in March, we were under orders from the governor that we could do no shutoffs. So that meant anybody that was delinquent on their bills would continue to be delinquent until they had the ability to pay. So the red bars represent what the original list looks like. So this is how much money was owed the village for how many accounts. You'll see there are 2 entries for each month. The blue bar then becomes, I report this out for service, and the blue bar then becomes, this is how much money we still have outstanding on how many accounts. One of the things that I have did since that the governor's ban was lifted in July is that I have offered to those who want to do it a payment plan, which is something we don't usually offer. So we have only about 5, maybe payment plans for now that are in process. That's not a lot considering what's out there. I spent from 9:30 this morning until noon on the phone because I still want to work with our residents, because I still understand they're still being impacted by either layoffs or reduction in hours or whatever. But I spent almost my whole morning personally calling all of the people that were still on the list for non-payment. Out of that list, most of them said they forgot. So, we did get a lot of payments. Others need assistance. And so what we do then, Brandy, is we give them lists of either agencies or churches or whoever can help them out to put them on any kind of help. The sad part is that we do have some people that have used those contacts and they still can no longer use them. I guess it's hard to say. So I really, really do try to work with everyone. So when it comes to shutting off water, it's a last resort right now. But I continue, as you can see, and I hope council sees this, is that our numbers are going down. The red bars are in a downward trend. The blue bars also in a downward trend. So I think we're making progress. I think we have slow pays, which is the difference between the red bar and the blue bar. But I think they're getting better. And we'll continue to put forth an effort to help where we can help and guide where we can guide. So that in a nutshell is my report.
All right. Anybody else have questions for Terry?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Terry, the 4 vacant properties that contribute to the amount due of $4,000. Is one of them the big brick building over there on the square?
I don't know where you're talking about, to tell you the truth, Mr. Mike. Where is it?
The one Landis bought?
No, he pays his bills every month. It's not, and I really, mainly the ones that are vacant are foreclosures. And then Brian does assessments. We don't like to do assessments because the only way you get an assessment is if somebody decides to pay their taxes or they sell the property. So we try to work with everyone, and usually because of my background, I can dig up who really is the owner of that. We have a lot of zombies, and zombie is a property that nobody claims. But the ones that are not cooperative, that we can't get any info on, then Brian assesses their taxes. So we keep an eye on the vacant properties in town.
Okay. That's all I have then.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Hearing none, we will move on then. Brian.
The only thing I have is I can't remember. It was a couple weeks ago. A lot of people should have been notified. But the audit has been released by the state auditor's office. I think they sent those out in emails, maybe in a mail. If you anyway, make a long story short, if anybody needs a copy of that report, let me know and I'll get it to you.
All right. Any questions for Brian? All right. Jeff, what you got for us?
Well, 4 new pieces of legislation on the agenda for first reading this evening. They've been discussed already. They've all been through committee. The 2 resolutions regarding the OPWC funding both have emergency language because the village is under a deadline for submitting those applications, including the legislation. So council is being asked to consider passage of those resolutions on an emergency basis this evening. Ordinance 2020-34, amending the employee manual to address the COVID virus. I wasn't specifically asked to include emergency language, but I felt that ordinance was appropriate for emergency language because of the nature of that virus. So I included that in case council wants to consider passage of that on an emergency basis. And the 4th piece of legislation, ordinance 2020-35, which is to amend the schedule of fees to create a fee for a demolition permit, does not include emergency language. So that's on for a first reading only this evening. And that's all I got.
All right. And we will move along to council committee reports and finance.
Okay, I only got in to the tail end of the finance committee this evening, and the mayor run the rest of the meeting for me. If you have any questions, I guess you propose them to the mayor, but
I think everybody,
I think everybody was at the meeting except for the chairman.
Well, Rick came on late. Big thing out of it for the two of you is we're still spending within appropriations, and since we can't have you guys in to sign everything for Brian, he talked to the auditors, and we are approving the monthly reports via motion so that they are reflected in the minutes, and the auditor indicated they will take that in lieu of signatures at this time.
Okay.
And then with that, if there's questions, Brian can answer them. If not, because we move finance, I was going to say, yeah, your next meeting will be the next council meeting, November 9th.
Right, at 6 p.m.
All right. And service? Now.
This is Cosgrave here. We did not meet since last meeting. So the next scheduled meeting is November 23rd, I believe.
All right. And safety?
Well, Mayor, we met tonight, we were messed around a week too, weren't we? Or 2 weeks? Didn't safety get moved one time?
No, I think safety's on the right week this week.
Okay. Anyway, we met tonight. All members present. I think all the council was present. So if there's any other questions, I'll try and answer them for you. And if none, the next meeting will be 23rd at 6:45.
And Jeff, one of the things on the safety agenda was the follow-up to the parking violation fees. That was added to the agenda. We're going to benchmark those ones that didn't have set fees in the future so that all of the parking violations have established fees so that people don't have to necessarily go into court if they get something like that. I think that was your suggestion when we came up with that last ordinance to look at those. So.
Correct. So somebody will forward me that information so I can prepare the legislation then?
Well, right now it's on there. We're going to benchmark to figure out what other communities are charging for if you're parking on the road during heavy snow, during a snow emergency, so that we can benchmark what other communities have. And then we'll have that for the next meeting. So I would think at the earliest it'll be, December, right when we're starting to get snow, that we'll be addressing the fine for parking in a snow emergency.
Okay.
So, all right. In which case, Mike, that might be one that we want to consider potentially passing after discussion in committee. Maybe looking at that as an emergency one. On the other hand, we've gone how many years without one? So, but just something to keep in mind.
Okay.
All right, rules.
Okay, Mayor, we met October the 12th, and ordinance 2020, 34, and 35 came from that committee, and it's on the first reading tonight. I know probably the ordinance 2020, 35 probably won't go to 2 or 3 readings. 2020, 2034 about the COVID-19 and employee manual. Terry, should we pass that tonight so we can get that in the book or not?
I would appreciate it.
Okay. And we talked quite a bit about doing rules in last council meeting, so we will. How about 35? We don't need to pass that tonight, do we?
No, because I think 35, no, it can go for 3 readings. We want it to go for 3 readings because I think there'll be some discussion on it. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to provide input on that.
And I agree, Mayor, but where's everybody at tonight? So saying that, they must not be too interested. So next meeting will be November the 9th, right after service. No, finance, excuse me.
Finance, yep.
Yes.
All right. Moving on, public safety reports. The chief is, or was earlier, working on a case. We're still working. He's still working on getting, we're changing those reports around. But I don't have anything specific to report from him otherwise for that. Fire board, we've got to get I got to talk to Steve about an appointment out there. Dwayne was our representative there, and I am hoping, I don't think they've had a meeting since the last one, but I'll work on getting the minutes from the last meeting to distribute to everyone for that. Moving on, village committee and commissions, planning and zoning. We haven't met since the last council meeting. Our next meeting is November the 12th, where we'll resume discussion on bed and breakfast, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and the like. And at that meeting, it's going to be a discussion of what other communities are doing, specifically with Airbnb type short-term rentals. Tree commission, I mentioned during my report, there was Arbor Day. Terry, do you have anything else on trees?
Only that was our October meeting, so our next meeting will be November 12th. And then December 1 is the deadline to get the Tree USA application in. And so I think I'm pretty much ready to submit that. So we're ahead of that.
All right. I should have taken it in when I was in the office tonight and dropped off the proclamation in your box. I'll get you the proclamation to include in that.
Okay.
And Records Commission is, of course, still in a standby until we can get to the office and Brian and Barb can log records to destroy. Motions, anybody have motions at this time to bring? Hearing none at this time, we will move on to ordinance and resolutions. First reading, ordinance 2020-34, an ordinance amending Chapter 240, Employee Manual of Personnel Policies and Regulations of the Baltimore Codified Ordinances and the declaration of an emergency. Sponsor on this one is Mr. Keller.
Okay, Mayor, this is with the adding to the employee manual about COVID-19 or any kind of disease that's similar to that. I think we talked about it quite a bit at the committee, and I think we even hit it at the last council meeting. So at this time, I like to bypass the 3-reading rule.
All right.
I make that a motion.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Hamilton seconds. No discussion on bypass. So roll call.
Keller,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
All right. 3rd reading is bypassed.
Okay, Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 2020-34.
Chuck, if I can interject something here.
Yes.
I did not word this ordinance to include any pandemic. So it's.
Oh, you did? Oh.
No.
Okay.
Just to address COVID-19 virus. So if council's interested in amending it to include any similar pandemic, then now would be the appropriate time to do that.
Well, I know in our minutes, I read the minutes from last meeting, it does mention that. So as I said that, Terry, what do you think?
I think we should. I think it's a good idea, and I think this is the appropriate time to amend that, to read that.
And I think, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would be okay to just amend it to say COVID-19 or any similar pandemic as defined
Right.
by Center for Disease Control?
Absolutely. That would be fine.
Okay, Jeff, you want me to amend it before I adopt it, or can I do it and adopt it in a minute?
No, I would separate motion to amend it, Chuck,
Okay.
and then to adopt it.
Okay, I'd like to move to amend the ordinance 2020-34 and add to not only COVID-19, but I thought in a minute here a minute ago, or a similar disease with it, something like it.
Similar
Similar
pandemic as defined by the Center of Disease Control.
Okay, that's what I want to say.
I know.
Second it again.
All right. All right, so we got a motion to amend and a second to amend the COVID-19 to also include any similar disease declared a pandemic by the Center for Disease Control. Motion and second to amend. Further discussion on that? Hearing none, roll call.
Keller,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Foreman.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, now I move to adopt 2020-34 being amended.
All right, motion to adopt as amended.
I'll second it.
Hamilton seconds. Discussion on 2020-34 as amended. Hearing none, roll call.
Keller,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Cosgray,
Yes.
McCreary.
Yes.
All right. 2020-34 will be adopted as amended. Jeff, once you get the amendment, just let me know and I'll swing by to sign it.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right. Moving on, 2020-35, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 260, Schedule of Fees of the Baltimore Codified Ordinances to create a fee for a demolition permit. Sponsor on this is Keller.
Okay, Mayor, this also came in the Rules Committee at the last meeting. We kicked it around quite a bit. We're going to keep it as, go to second reading, but just to fill in Brandy a little bit, the fees are $150 right now. We want to increase them to $300. If they go by the book and don't give the village administrator any problem where they have to go in and write them up or anything, they will get a half of it back, which would be $150. But if they don't, we keep the whole $300. I guess I can explain it right now.
Yeah.
And we'll go second reading next month or next meeting.
We'll go second reading on that. Is there any other discussion we want to have on that one tonight?
I'll attend the next Rules Committee meeting because I do have a suggestion on it that would make it probably more effective. And, I understand the need, so I think I'd like to have it have more teeth and maybe less cost. So we'll talk about it in rules next time rather than here. There's no need to talk about it here.
Jeff,
Okay.
is that something, Jeff, just for clarification, since it's already been placed into an ordinance into council, don't we discuss it here and not take it back to rules?
It can easily go back to rules. There's no problem with that whatsoever. So
Mr. Foreman, are you asking that it go back to rules?
Will it be discussed in the next rules meeting?
No, probably not because it's been through rules.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, I guess my
suggestion
suggestion is that we make a larger deposit and a lesser cost, because there's a lot of buildings in this town that really should or need to be torn down, and $150 doesn't clean up the mess if they leave us a mess. Where if it was like $1,000 deposit and $100 fee, to me, then, they have so many days to get it to where every square foot is seated and mowable, or a new construction building permit is acquired. And, we're moving forward on these properties instead of leaving them in the state they're in. you know, I could see, I would be more in favor of a larger amount that they sacrifice if they don't clean up the mess, because $150 isn't enough to clean up the mess for them. And, you know, I would rather, if they do things right, which I think most people will, so they could care less about the $1,000 deposit, the $100 fee or the $150 fee, I think is less of a nuisance to them. I think that we're just increasing the nuisance.
Well,
So I don't know. I think if we're going to change it, let's give it more teeth. Let's make it more useful. That's all.
And I guess I can see that. On the other hand, if someone's going to tear down a building, I guess I don't see, at least from my perspective, the fee being our cost to clean it up. This is the cost for Terry's time to do the paperwork and the inspections. Because if they don't clean it up, they end up with code enforcement or zoning violation in mayor's court, where they can be forced to, under fines and whatever else, to clean it up that way. And that's where the cost comes in. This is for Terry's time to do the paperwork and the inspections. And then if we have to send them notices of violations, which would bring them into court, get it there. And I guess I look at it as, if I were tearing down a building, you know, in my choice, we've got one person that balked at $150 to tear down a building, even though he's going to spend $4,000 to tear it down, but he won't pay $150 for a permit. You know, and I see it, you know, from my perspective, I don't know that I would pay $1,000, even if I knew I was getting most of it back. That's a big deposit to put when I might have limited funds to tear down the building.
And let's talk a little bit about the demolition process versus a regular zoning process. Demolition process is not as easy to do. One thing is that when we get zoning applications, we receive the application, we log it. I do a site visit, or Tim does a site visit, and then we approve or disapprove, and then one more site visit to say, yeah, they did it right. Demolition permit isn't like that, because we have to do multiple visits to the site, especially if there's a water tap or a sewer tap involved, which is, again, a different set of staff that has to go there. It's more complicated with the demo permit. And that's why when I benchmark to the other villages or entities to see where we're at, as you can see on that matrix that I shared with everybody, we're pretty much right on when it comes to the $150. Again, though, I don't make the fees, and I don't, I don't assign the fees or whatever. I'm just saying this is the kind of work that we have to do for a demo fee. So
I guess as I'm processing it, Rick, are you kind of suggesting that maybe we amend this even more to say, here's a deposit, and that way, if they don't clean it up, we have the money to clean it up? Because if that's the case, I think Pickerington did something. Was it Pickerington, or was it one of those others? Johnstown
does that.
But they had a graduated scale based on square footage. The bigger the building, the larger your deposit, because if you don't clean it up, the more it's going to cost the village to do it.
That makes sense to me. That's logical.
And I'm okay with that, as long as we do have some teeth, so that if these people don't clean it up, because that's where the revisits to the property come in. I mean, I have two properties. One of them, I might as well have lunch there every day. That's how bad it was. And I had no way except to bring them into court, and they were there twice. So the 1,000 is okay. I think then we just need to decide, do they pay it? They pay it up front, and then we get an approval after what you said, Mr. Foreman, that it's either graded, ready to go with seed, or they have a new build permit.
I mean, to me, that makes more sense, because the ones that haven't cleaned up their mess, I don't feel like this is going to solve the problem. I mean, yes, we still have mayor's court. We had mayor's court anyway. The $150 just doesn't really get it done. I mean, isn't that the goal, is to get it done so that we have a safe, mowable
Yes.
Yeah, compliant lot. And I just feel like this is almost like nuisance legislation, like it doesn't really fix it. So
how do
I'm not saying I'll vote no against it. I'm just saying if we're going to change it, let's change it to fix it.
So how do we let's pick on
I'd like to see that. Sorry, it's Scott's right here. I got a garage I want to take down, but I'm struggling to come up with the $5,000 to take it down. If I got to come up with $6,000, that's a hurdle that's just too high. So I am completely against having to front $1,000 for a permit. I don't care if I'm getting most of it back. I'm struggling just to get the damn thing tore down and took away. That's just untenable.
And that's kind of where that's what I was going to say is what do we do with someone like that or someone on a fixed income that needs to tear down a building that you can't, $300 is going to be a challenge for them, let alone $1,000.
But there again, we just raised Wade's cost $150 and for no reason. I mean, it doesn't really solve the problem for the property where they tore down the house and have left us a mess. And I'm just saying, if we're not going to raise it to where we can fix the problem, why raise it at all? Let's let these people get these bad buildings torn down on the cheap.
Well, I guess the question is this ordinance about the fees for the permit, and the fees for permits are to cover staff time, or is it an ordinance to establish a fee for bad actors, which is a fine?
To me, what we're trying to solve here is the bad actors. I mean, why don't we keep Wade's cost lower so he can tear down his building, or Mike's? I mean, you brought up Mike. Keep their fees low so they can tear down these buildings that we don't want, don't need, they're not taken care of. But we need to put something in place that helps us clean up the bad actors. And this $150, I don't think accomplishes that. That's all.
But and I can agree with that. But again, the fee is to cover Terry's time. If we all of a sudden say, well, your fees, $1,000, and if you do everything right, you're getting $1,000 back. That's not revenue neutral for the village, and it takes money out of our that would come out of our zoning budget to cover Terry's time, Tim's time, Joey's time, whoever has to go out there to do those inspections. So
I don't feel like this drives our payroll costs higher, though. They're on staff already. Granted, their time's worth something. I get that, but I don't feel like this $150 solves the problem that we're discussing. That's all. I'm just telling you what I think.
Okay. Definitely something to think about. So we have it on for a second reading. And
maybe the fee would be different if there's taps involved, if there's not taps involved. There's no taps involved in Wade's teardown. There were taps involved in those houses that are torn down. So I think the taps, whether it be sewer and water and electric, make a difference in how much attention we have to pay to the demolition. So I'm just saying, I don't feel like this legislation fixes our problem. I would just rather discuss it further and find a solution to our problem.
So then having this discussion, it sounds like we might need more discussion. So do we want to just send it back to rules and review it, or not really?
We can
obviously
leave it
square
on.
Footage or size comes into play. I mean, if they're wanting to tear down Creative Foods, that's a different demolition than Wade tearing down his barn too.
Mm-hmm.
A big difference. And so I think size matters.
So what we can do then is we can leave it on for a second reading so it keeps progressing, but we have rules in 2 weeks, right? On November 9th after finance. Right. So we can, obviously discuss it more there where we can have a couple weeks to consider Rick's idea, because he is right. We need to do something on that side.
Well,
I don't know if I'm quite to where he's at yet on it, because I see this as the fee for staff time, but I get how they're related. So we could add it to the rules agenda to continue to discuss. And then Terry, we can go over your matrix again, because some of them did have square foot costs associated. And if in talking with RC or any of your groups, if anybody has demolition fees that change based on your structure with and without sewer or water taps, or even with or without electricity, you know, bring those so that we can consider that as well, because, you know, like Rick said, there and like you said, there are different inspections for if there are those taps versus it's just a freestanding alone building. So
I'll reach out to some of my contacts.
We can leave it on for a second reading, but we will have a rules meeting before the next council meeting, and we can add this to the agenda for further discussion and evaluation of additional information at the time.
Okay.
Sound good?
That's good.
Good.
All right. Then we will.
We will have a meeting next month.
Yes, you will.
You have an agenda, Chuck.
You got an agenda. All right, moving on. Resolution 2020-36. This is a resolution authorizing the village administrator to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, state capital improvements and/or local transportation improvement programs to execute contracts as required in the declaration of an emergency. Sponsor on this one was Keller, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, and this project, I know it was going to be next year. So do we don't have to just let it keep going to next, or do you need to get this settled, Terry, so we can get your grant and all that? So you can start working on it?
Well,
so you need
I've been working on it. I'm ready to submit. Yeah, we need this passed.
Okay.
This has to be submitted with the packet, and that would be submitted later this week.
Okay, Mayor, I move that we bypass the 3 reading rule.
All right.
Cosgray, second.
All right. Motion second, bypass. Roll call.
Keller,
Yes.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, Mayor, I should have looked at my notes because it said right here on my notes, pass this tonight because Jeff says so. So I moved we adopt.
Cosgray,
all right.
second.
Motion to adopt. Cosgray, second. Discussion on Resolution 2020-36, which is our OPWC for the Coomer Brown Fremont water line. Hearing none, roll call.
Keller,
Yes.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Hankinson.
Yes.
All right. Resolution 2020-36 will be adopted. Moving on, Resolution 2020-37, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, state capital improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs to execute contracts as required. Declaration of an emergency. Sponsor on this one is Cosgray.
Yeah, it's the OPWC grant for the paving of Park Street. So I'd like to make a motion to suspend 3 reading rule.
All right. Motion to suspend 3 reading.
Foreman,
There's
second.
I'll second it.
All right. 4 minutes.
I wasn't going to because it was Park Drive, but I will second it.
All right. Foreman got in there first. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
All right. Roll call.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Keller,
Oh, yes.
McCreary.
Yes.
All right. 3 readings suspended.
I'd like to make a motion we adopt.
Foreman, seconds.
All right. Motion and second to adopt 2020-37. Discussion on this one. This is our OPWC for Park Street repaving. Hearing no further discussion, roll call.
Foreman,
Yes.
Cosgray,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Keller,
Yes.
Hankinson,
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
All right, resolution 2020-37 will be adopted. Terry, you can get the OPWC grant application submitted.
Yay, it's been a lot of work, but we're coming to the end.
All
Mayor,
right,
did we miss 2020-33?
Nope, that's next because it's a second
Oh.
reading.
You're correct.
All right, good segue. Second reading, ordinance 2020-33, an ordinance amending chapter 452 of the Baltimore Codified Ordinances, parking penalty to establish a minimum fine and payment method for parking violations. Sponsor is Hamilton.
Oh, this is one where we discussed it just so we could get the parking fee into a payable violation, I guess is the way you want to say it.
Yep.
So.
And this one has no emergency, so we can leave it on for a third reading.
Correct.
All right. Anyone else have discussion on that one tonight? All right. So that one will come on for third and final reading November 9th. Moving on, nothing for third readings. Does anybody have any old business? All right. Does anybody have any new business?
Just a heads up that I will be doing personnel review. So probably next meeting, you should see everything so we can talk about budget.
All right. Which I guess is a good segue. Brian, how's that coming along? I know I was emailing you a lot over the weekend and late last week on numbers, spreadsheets, worksheets, and stuff.
Well, the revenues are pretty close to being done. Because basically, the tax budget being out of the office, I just used last year's or this year's budget numbers to give the county for segue for next year, anticipating to redoing those budget revisions for next year. And revenues are almost done. And now that we got some information from insurance, I can start working on the appropriations too.
Okay. All right. Send those out as soon as they're ready.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else have any new business?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a. We appointed Brandy at the last meeting, correct?
She was. Yeah. Well, council made the motion and the vote to appoint Brandy at the last meeting. Correct.
Okay. My question is, I have to. Okay, so we approved the minutes tonight, Mayor. Could you go in and sign when they're could you go in and sign the minutes? I'll have them in your box. I think I have to send that, and I don't know what else I have to send to the Board of Elections. There's a couple of things just to note. I've already notified them that Dwayne had resigned, and
right.
I just want to send them a copy of the minutes as well as the proclamation. Would that or just the minutes?
Yeah, just the minutes, I think, is what you'll need. Okay. So I'll come in and as soon as, well, they won't, yeah, we approved them tonight. So if they're in my box, I'll stop in tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon and sign them.
Okay, tomorrow afternoon. That'll give me time to print them off and get them in your box.
Yeah, because I leave tomorrow around 6:30 a.m. So they probably won't be in there then. So I'll stop in the afternoon.
No.
All right. That'll work. Terry, your job is to remind me at lunch tomorrow to make sure to stop in the office and sign them.
I can do that.
All right. Any other new business? Brandy, questions, thoughts?
I'm just taking it all in, following along here, listening.
All right.
Lots of reading.
Yes. All right. I just checked. Sometimes the email's a little behind, but I had no email comments from visitors. So any last call from council? If not, hearing none, our next meeting will be November 9th at 7:30, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I move.
Hamilton motion, Foreman second. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Unanimous voice vote to adjourn. Meeting over at 8:40. So, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Barb, this will be uploaded hopefully a couple hours.
I got one thing. Can I say one thing?
Of course.
Sure.
Mayor, what are you going to dress up like during Halloween? You don't have to answer that.
I will not be wearing a costume. I will be walking around with my daughter, who will be dressed up as Marty McFly.
All right.
So I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah, we have Halloween this week. Sorry, I forgot that. So, all right, everyone, have a good evening, and have a good evening.
Good night.
All right.
Bye.
Night.
Good night, everyone.